Liam Payne is a miraculous, inspiring, complex, very honest, very vulnerable, very open book. Are you the type of person that needs to be kept busy?
I think so. I think I've had a crash course this last year in learning to have my own time. Because I mean, imagine from about the age of 16, 17, we're day sheet every day. So when you don't have a day sheet, it's like, what the hell do I do? And then the other part of it's like, you don't really learn what you enjoy from that point either. So it was that was quite difficult in lockdown because you have so much time to yourself. And then it was like, I saw something the other day about toxic productivity. Did you see this?
Yeah, I've seen this.
Obviously, they got a new ism for everything. But it actually made sense to me. If I'm not doing something that's productive, I feel like I'm going backwards. So then I'm trying to force moves. And I suppose that was one of the things I think I learned most about myself. I don't have to be doing something every day to feel good about myself.
Have you always been like that since before One Direction?
You know, I think we just always worked. Like I was on TV at 14. So from then on, my life's just been like doing the same thing over and over and over again up till this point. So you know it's going to end at some point. So you always want to find something else that you're good at.
Do you worry a lot?
I think I did up until the last few months. I mean, alcohol. Easier and easier to go to.
Talking about lockdown, so you go through that sort of depressive period. I think we all went through that.
You ain't Superman and you're going to have a bad day. I love the gym. I've always called it like a small victories thing. Call a family member. You know, spend some time with my son, make sure I get FaceTiming. Because if I've at least been to the gym that day, then I've done something. As long as I've done one of those things in the day, then it doesn't matter if I didn't do anything. Because it was hard. Because the first point of it, we couldn't see each other. It was the longest I haven't seen my son in a long time. What I found more than anything, and this with the alcohol, with other stuff, is like boundaries. There were no boundaries. So it was like creating your own boundaries, creating your own routines. And that's where I think everybody struggled the most without routine.
You start drinking more and more during the lockdown.
And kind of describing it as a bulking period. I put on so much weight. I was eating badly. And one performance on TV, it was with the BAFTAs actually. I didn't look how I wanted to look. You know, they say the camera adds 10 pounds. It definitely did. I've completely let myself go in this. And it's been the best outcome for me because I feel so much more secure in myself now. And I feel like I know where I'm at again, which is good.
Have you struggled to maintain consistency with the gym?
I mean, training partners is the best one for that. I'm fairly good with keeping myself on the go with it. I mean, like I say, the only problem for me was just the alcohol.
And what's the value of the gym been in your life?
Like I say, it's being able to get into bed at night and have that small victory to know at least I did this. And it was for me. It wasn't for anybody else. Jiu-jitsu is super humbling because you just get thrown around like, it's like a tiger eating a gazelle or something. The fitness side and the jiu-jitsu side that I'm training.
I wanted to ask you some advice. What advice would you give to me about dealing with this kind of noise?
It's a really fine line between getting too wrapped up in what's going on and not being wrapped up enough in it, if you know what I mean. You know the things that hurt you the most because you know they're honest. So when someone says something you like, if they hurt you, then it hurt you a lot, then you know there's some truth in it because it hurt you. If it's ridiculous, you just go, oh, that was funny. As if they said that. I mean, I was a bit mean and nasty at points, actually. It was a bit bad, but someone said to me over time, it's like, you know, if someone says something about me in the press in this country and then I say something about them, it ends up on E! News and then they've made America. I didn't get anywhere. Don't bring people up to your level and let it go. That was the best thing I ever did.
There's not a high regard for truth.
My biggest problem around Corona was the fact that the media were allowed to twist our thinking about Corona, you know, and these people aren't sat there going, oh, I've just written a great article, my boss is going to promote me. Bullshit. Like, we all read you for advice and you are offering us a disservice by telling us non-truths about stuff. But none of us know. We're all confused because we're being spouted fear, which I just think is terrible.
You are?
I am indeed.
You're single?
Yeah. I'm just not very good at them, so I just need to work on myself
first to tell me what that means,
before I put myself onto somebody else.
What is it you've discovered about yourself in relationships that you're trying to work on?
I mean, one of our old managers went to therapy from being a manager of One Direction. So you can imagine how that feels. And you just get to a point where it's like you have to take some control back yourself. And until I started to do that with my life, nothing in my life was about serving myself, which then that just led me in a bad place. And finding enjoyment from other stuff that I don't need. I'm so glad that I, one, went through what I went through this year, and two, that, you know, I think this year's forced something out of all of us. And for me, it forced me to really look at my life and go, what the F are you doing? Like, grow up.
Really keen to understand what makes you a difficult, specifically what makes you a difficult person to date?
I struggle to be on my own sometimes. I think I dive in and out of relationships too quickly. And I've not had to spend enough time on my own to really learn about myself, if that makes sense. I honestly just need a minute out. I need to check myself. I'm proper perfectionist. Terrible. So when it comes down to relationships, I'm always trying to, at the start of the relationship, as we all do, you put out this complete false character.
Yes.
Like I might as well go in costume at this point. I'm like putting out something that is not there. The person is absent from the room. It's like they tag teamed on the way in. Oh, it's you for this bit. Yeah, I'll join in later on. And I just need to stop doing that. And then kind of like, I'm like willing to bend to someone else's stall, and then I'm annoyed at why they don't like what I like.
Amen.
So then I'm like, oh, okay, but if I just laid out the stall early on and like, yeah, I go up at 5 a.m. and I go for a run. Well, how are we going to deal with that? So it's either in or it's not. You know what I mean? It's not to not compromise, because some things you'll be like, okay, that annoys you, fine.
I've really debated that. I'm going to personally, especially recently, because the girl I was into is very into everything that I'm not into.
Like I hide resentments from people sometimes. And I'm like, something annoys me and I'm like, oh, no, it's fine. But inside I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I wish she didn't do that. And then so then it's like, then over time, I'm like, every little thing starts creeping in. And I did this in my job really badly, because I would bend to my job and let my job overtake things that I didn't like doing. Steve will actually be honest, like videos for stuff. And rather than going no, until one day I just was like, I hate everything. Gone back the other way. Now I've had this little reset that like I'm starting to call people in to do what I want to do rather than bending to everybody else's stuff. So I find I fill conversations with crap that I'm saying that doesn't really help me, because I'll go home thinking, why the hell did I say that? Like what now? I'm that guy? Oh my God, And then it's like, but I was saying it because I thought it would entertain the other person. It wasn't about me. Stupid.
Being a perfectionist.
Yeah, it's an issue.
Yeah. Talk to me about what that means specifically in your life.
So I started drawing, but then what I found was I was so bad at starting the task, blank sheet of paper and all that, because I was so worried about what might come out, that I was like, I'd sit there and like, if something's not quite right, it can ruin my day in a drawing. If something goes wrong and it's not quite right, I'm like, oh my God, like I hate it.
And how did that go? Drawing? Okay.
I mean, the thing is, once I got started and got onto some stuff, but then it was like I was drinking to draw pictures because I was so in my own freaking way. I feel like now I feel much more like I know who I am and I know what I want to do. So I don't need to be in my own way. I'm going to go.
And are you still drinking? Or have you? No, not still.
No. I've been sober just over a month now, I think it is.
Hey, my business partner, he when we started the business, became an alcoholic about 3-4 years in because it was just too tough. And then he had like severe suicidal ideation. He actually didn't tell me at the time. And this is why when I was reading about your story, I could relate to so much of it, because I didn't say what I was going through to him. He didn't say it to me. And then it was like after we'd sold the business that he was like, I used to stand on the train platforms and think about jumping in front of the train. And I was like, and he never told me. But there was, I didn't know what alcoholism or really mental health was at the time. But I'd go downstairs 3 a.m. in the morning and I'd open up the laundry room and he's in there with a bottle of wine at 3 a.m. The lights are off and he's just drinking it, sat on the clothes. I'm like, get off my fucking clothes. I'm joking. And I was like, what the hell's going on? But, and I read similar sort of story or narratives in your story where, you were having moments of that kind of like ideation. You were having moments of suicidal ideation. And
yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that I've definitely like never spoken about to do with it. It was really, really, really severe. It was only until I saw myself after that I was like, right, I need to fix myself. I just didn't like myself very much. Then I made a change. And the same thing happened this year with that sort of thing as well. It feels to me like when we were in the band, the best way to secure us, because of how big it got, was just lock us in our rooms. And of course, what's in the room? Minibar. Party for one. And that just seemed to carry on throughout many years of my life. And then you look back, how long you've been drinking and stuff, where you're like, Jesus Christ, that's a long time. Even for someone who's, as young as I was. I spoke to somebody about this and as a teen, the one thing you need is freedom to make choices and freedom to do stuff. And it was the one thing that, although we could do anything we wanted, it seemed from the outside that we were always locked in a room at night. And then it would be car, hotel room, stage, sing, locked. So it was like they pulled the dust cloth off, let us out for a minute, and then woohoo! And then he's like back underneath it, and I'm like, gut. I didn't know I was the boss until like a few months ago. I still don't even feel like I am now. Like I'm such a child. When we were 17, I thought the security guard was like in charge of me. Like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. You know what I mean? It's like, and no one, there's no guidebook. They don't give you a little DVD on the way in saying, here, you're a pop star. Like, this is what you got to do. So I'm like in the room, like, what, are we allowed to leave? And then eventually that becomes like an angry person. And I was. Yeah. There was points where it was toxic and it was difficult. Don't get me wrong. We had the best time ever. We did. You don't realize you have a choice at that point. But in those shows, sometimes they don't give you the choice because you want the dream. But you have to realize there is a sacrifice for that. Being an alcoholic, doing whatever else, that was my choice. So, you know, it doesn't have to be whiny, but it's just like, there was a sacrifice. And I know what I did sacrifice to be here.
You can't go from being an 18-year-old kid that's like nicking Chicago town pizzas to feed himself to building a company worth 300 million within 6-7 years.
What a great sentence that was, by the way.
I was a fucking loner. Like, I was in my room for summers upon summers on my own, for just, you know, because my parents weren't talking to me. They said, don't call us until you go back to university. So I wasn't speaking to my family. No friends, because I couldn't even afford to see them. That was the cost for me. And what that made is someone who, again, isn't very social. On the weekends, I spend 99% of my time alone.
I'm the same.
And people are like, oh my God, I'd love to be. I'm like, well, and then I have the same thing you have, which is my brain always has 1,000 tabs open. And I can't just go and sit on a sun lounger and tan. Like, tan?
Like I said, I started at 14. I remember very clearly the moment that the X Factor moment happened when I was younger. And I was playing football on a field and we had an all-girls school right next door to us. So I'm just playing football like it's a normal day. I've had a few people shout me out in the street where it was like, cool, I'm 14 years old. The whole school from the other school is on the fence.
You're joking.
And I'm like banned from that field for life. It was wild, but what their people
Good
don't.
Wild?
Yeah, it was amazing. I went from like zero to like I was the it was
Goat,
the
thing
thing is
of the school.
I always say to people, I wasn't world famous when I was 14, but I was famous within my world. So it's like, well, I didn't leave Wolverhampton, and everybody in Wolverhampton knew who the hell I was, so I couldn't go anywhere. So, you know, and at that point, I can't afford a security guard. I'm not special enough to have any of these like additives. I'm still on the 794A to you know, my little Christian school. And then there was one significant moment for me where I knew that I lost it and I wasn't gonna go back on X Factor to be in the band, which would have been wild, by the way. I was in a McDonald's with like a new girlfriend I had at the time, and it had been 2 years since the show, and I noticed my shows decreased in number, decreased in capacity, and decreased in wages. So I was like down and out at this point. So I've had fame and lost it. And I'm like nearly 16 years old. Mm-hmm. So that's difficult to deal with anyway at that age. And then I'm in McDonald's, and because everyone still knows who I am, I'm sat there and I literally remember about to take a bite of this nice juicy burger. Someone on the stairs goes, X Factor reject. And the whole restaurant looks at me, right? I'm 15 years old. And it was just horrible.
What a scumbag thing to say.
I know, but it was like, that's the thing. It's like, it was almost like a shout out to say, oh, you think you're special, but you're still here. It's not what you do, it's what's happened to you, which I thought was I like that. You leave fame the age you entered it. So for me, that was 14, right? So I'm screwed. Like I'm the 14-year-old forever child. So that was always a big fear of mine, that I have to grow properly. I grew massively in some respects, to the point that, I mean, you all have experiences when you have conversations about business deals, and I'm the director of a company. Like I was a director of a $500 million industry at 22. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? All it meant was I got to sign 10 times more forms than anybody else. Wild, right? So, but then in other things, like if I'm trying to pay car insurance, I'm useless. So then you don't grow in other aspects of your life because you have other people do crap for you. Like picking up my post, I'm the worst person in the world. I just forget about it, you know.
That must lead you open to be taken advantage of, right? Because they know that there's some things you don't know. Like you were taking...
If you're not part of the $1 million conversation, you were never part of the fucking conversation. Yeah, I know, and that's literally it. It's like be in the moment. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know someone that does know something. So we sat there, and then I turned the film on, and the first shot of the film was from the trailer. He's going, why are you playing this again? And I'm going, no, it was, we watched a trailer. No, but why is it on the TV again? And it kept like bits get flashing on. I'm like, oh my God, this is not helping me. So then I'm like, okay, how do I explain this? I was like, you know, like if we like have a plate of food and like I feed you a little bit and then you go, oh, and you don't want it. And then I take it away. Or if I feed you some and you go, oh yeah. And I give you the whole thing. I was like, that's like this. And then he's going, yeah, but why are we watching it again? Oh my God.
And my mind thought, oh, that's really intriguing, is you said that you weren't going to reapply for the X Factor, potentially. Yeah. Where do you think you would be? And I'm going to ask you various iterations of this questions. Where do you think you'd be in your life now if you hadn't have applied for the X Factor?
I got a job the same time, this is really wild. Work experience week at school. My dad worked at a factory and I was always obsessed. I was like, this is adult Lego. And he built airplanes. I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to do that. So I went and I built airplanes and they had like a little collection for me. I did like 400 quid and everyone, I was like, what did you get paid for your work experience? Everyone was like, nothing. I was like, oh, I got like 500 quid. But in the middle of my work experience, I went on X Factor. So it was almost like I was trialing my two lives.
Ooh.
My thing was I'd got a job and secured one there for an apprenticeship, which was like 22,000 a year or something. And then I was like, right, I know my sister paid £60 board at the house. So if I just like board at my parents' house, it's £60 in fees. Then I can save up the other money enough to buy my first house and then rent it out.
All right. So you
then
had
I was
a
going to
plan.
collect the rent, buy another one, and then move into that one. And then it was almost like a conveyor belt system.
You need to teach me some stuff because I have 0 properties. I'm renting this place. You feel somewhere in you that you still have something to prove. Because
100%.
really,
100%. You're only really proving it to yourself because no one else really cares. Everyone else just looks at you as what it is. And it's not that you want to beat your brand because no one will beat our One Direction. Not one of us in our lifetimes. In another lifetime, somebody might crack something. I mean, BTS have had a really good go at it. They've done really, really well.
Christ.
But we were like the new wave of the Beatles. And even still, people didn't say we beat the Beatles. You know what I mean? You're never going to...
But it's different era.
Exactly. And that's what happened with our fame as well. We were just that of this era. It's the same with Justin Bieber, right? Who the hell's beaten that run? Come on.
They won't. Someone will be different.
Exactly. So it's just like, I think in the end, you're only like fighting against yourself. I sound like Rocky Balboa now. I think we did compete with each other at a point. But I think it's all fairly, like, it's laid out as it is now. And we've all had our success in completely different areas. And also, musically, we didn't really go down the same route. I think Harry's done amazing, you know. I mean, first album, he had the one song off, which is really, really well. And then his second album, he found himself. And that is your awakening as an artist. That's when it really clicks. I don't feel like I've had that moment within me yet. I've written some songs recently that I'm really proud of and happy with, but I don't feel like I've had that moment yet. Strip That Down came out and we did 1 billion streams. And I could have never have asked for that. I could have never have asked for that in a million years. But when I was making Strip That Down, I was a box of frogs. I was nuts. I got so used to carting around other people's songs and not embedding myself creatively in what I do because I was scared to find out who I was. So it's almost like, that's the thing, when you're selling yourself, you have to know what the hell you're selling. And I'm sure most people wake up every day going, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
And you have to fail to find that out, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because you're going to have to try some shit and experiment.
Oh my God. And it's like, so say like you're like geeky kind of growing phase between say 16 to 21, if you're lucky. It might last a bit longer if you're shit. I did that in front of everyone. And there's some terrible outfits. There's some terrible haircuts. You know, and
had some great haircuts
that stuff
as well.
is there forever. I've gotten away with a few haircuts.
Yeah, I feel like you've had some great ones. The short haircut, I think not a lot of people can pull that out. I got a bit of like a melon head thing at the back, so I can't do that. People think I'm an alien. But no, you've had some good haircuts. I've got to be honest. When I read something about Strip That Down, you said that you were almost scared of the success just as much as scared of the failure.
Oh, man. I mean, no one trains you for the moment it goes right?
So you leave One Direction, you've got your big sort of debut single coming up, and you're scared of the success. If it does really...
I was worried because I know what that can bring to you. I did a whole day's promo in New York. And on the nighttime, I was on, I think it's an Andy Cohen show or something, and they had a drinking game. And someone asked me a question about one of my ex-girlfriends, and I did not want to divulge what the hell went down. And it was a drinking game. So I was like, they were like, we can fill it with water. But me being me was like, no, if I'm playing for real. So I'm like necking tequila.
Oh, gosh.
Like, boom. And I'm wasted. I get home at 1:30. Bear in mind, I started at like, I want to say 8 o'clock in the morning. I was then asleep and I woke up at 3:30 for vocal training to be in Central Park at 7, for grooming at 5 and in Central Park for 7 o'clock. Bear in mind, I went to bed at 1:30. So I know what it can bring. And that crap will send you insane. I don't remember some days I was here. Like that will send you round the bend. But it's if you want it, it's out there for you. You can go ahead and take it. But it's like, you have to be a workhorse to want to do this. And I think a lot of artists would say that coming out of it. The thing was 9 months to get the #1 in America. So it took 9 months to work the record just to get the #1. So if you can imagine singing the same song every day for 9 months and having like 1 or 2 songs to back it up with, it was like pretty, like, I'm sure somewhere that must be like put down as a method of torture.
Yeah, I can imagine. You must.
But this is the job, man.
And what's your relationship like with the rest of the boys? I'm sure you get asked this all the time. But I
Great with
imagine
most
it
of them.
evolves.
Great with most of them. I think everyone's settling into themselves at this point. I know I am for sure. I had a lovely phone call from Harry the other day. He was checking in on me, and I mean, it's always like some people have got sixth sense for you, right? That you're going through something, so they'll check in. And he's very much like that. He's a lovely, lovely boy. I love him to pieces. And then Louis, I speak to a lot, and we've always had a really, really close connection. And the funny thing for us, and I've said this a lot, but we hated each other at the start. But it's almost the people that you grow closest to, you know. I'd said it from day one, lonely hotel rooms, man. Getting locked in that room is not fun when you've been exposed. I mean, I've come off gigs before. I did a gig in Dubai. I was really worried no one was going to show up. It was one of my first solo gigs by myself. And I suppose I'm uber self-critical. I'm always like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So I get to this park, and the capacity for the park is like, you've never seen. I'm looking at like a park. I'm like, how the hell? And I'm thinking, we're getting paid a lot of money to be here. This is going to be really embarrassing if nobody shows up. And I don't know anybody in Dubai. I can't even call 10 friends to be here. So I'm like, at dinner, I'm not eating my food and whatever else. Then I get back to the gig, and there's people chanting and going, Liam. And I'm like, okay, there's people here. Oh my God, I can chill. I get out there, and I'm like awash with these sea of people. And I notice the sound system's hella quiet behind me. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I get through the gig and you autopilot the hell out of it. When I got off stage, they're like, oh, you broke a record. You're on a list with Michael Jackson. It was 110,000 people. I'm like, and I was like, I shit you not. I got back to my hotel room, and I was sat in my room on a chair like this. And I was about to go to the Maldives with Cheryl and Bear. And I'm like, I don't think I can go to the Maldives right now. I can't move off this chair.
How did you feel on that chair?
Shocked. Why? Like, to go from like, I don't know who's going to be here, to then I looked on the thing, and it's like Oasis, Robbie Williams, all these amazing, you know, AC/DC, all these outdoor gigs, amazing outdoor gigs. And then just me and Michael Jackson. And he's in there like 3 or 4 times. He's, you know, he is the list. But I was on the same list. I'm like, what the?
Can't be easy. Like, going back to that hotel room. Like,
and then that's it. It's just mute. It's almost like, you know, like in a movie where they throw a grenade and he goes, and then everyone's like,
and
that's what it feels like. And you're like, oh my God, like.
I can completely relate, because I was thinking last year, I lived in New York City, but I was speaking around the world 50 weeks of the year. So I was home 4 weeks. And yeah, I go back to the hotel room. Sometimes, you know, I haven't eaten because of the adrenaline. And it's very lonely, and you like YouTube and
what
room
do I
service.
do now?
Yeah, but 110,000 people screaming your name, and you're performing.
Wild. I had the prince or the king or something of Dubai dancing to strip that down.
Talking about the touring here, the touring part really messed you up. So the hotel rooms,
yeah,
a return of 1D.
Yeah, I mean, I saw like a thing of people being like angry at X Factor this last few weeks, and I wanted to say something about it, but I didn't really know what to say on my terms, because I feel like there's obviously going to be some people in there who are bitter. And you sign up for this show, you don't really know what the hell you're getting yourself into. But I would agree, and we've actually gone out of our way as a team to make this possible for me. And I think a record label just bought into the idea of what we've made. And I was the guinea pig, right? So pick the craziest person in the room to start with. That's a good place to start. And we made this thing to like care for people in the industry, because we don't have unions. We don't have people to look after us. And I was a kid. You know, I was a child when this happened to me, and I'm very fortunate to still be here today to be able to tell this story. But for most people, they feel abused or something in some sense. So I just think that there needs to be a self-care, a care system within these shows. Because if they're going to move people through these shows and use them to make television, they can't just like let them off afterwards. And I could never watch X Factor because I was always heartbroken, because I'd been the guy who made it really far and then got let go, and it ruined me when I was 14. I was crap at school, depressed, like it ruined me at one point. But I've also then been the guy who, I think my dad actually came out and said it in a thing we were filming once. He was like, you've been told no more than any winning X Factor contestant or like any successful X Factor contestant. I'm like, thanks, Dad. It's great to know.
What an unusual experience.
Wild.
If you were to tour again, would you do it differently?
I always said throughout this solo career, I'd let my songbook speak to me. And I don't think my songbook has necessarily spoke to me enough to get me off my ass to go somewhere yet. I only became a solo artist because I had stripped that down. Now I'm back in.
Why?
Because the song, I knew it was right. It felt right with the song. Whereas I haven't had that. And this year, the song that we have, I feel really right about. So I would rather let the music do the talking than me come out and
try and force it.
I mean, it's such a fast-moving industry these days. It's one of the biggest races in the world, right? If we had a start line for how many musicians there are trying to make it right now and who's going to outwork the other one, we'd need a very big track. Yeah. We don't need any more useless music in the world, in my eyes. It needs to mean something.
One of the most moving things I've ever seen, which honestly disturbed me and has stayed with me my entire life, was that Avicii documentary.
I mean, I've spoken to managers who've lost people and different, and you know, I've definitely put strain on a lot of people in my life in the past. You see, it makes me like makes me a different person. I don't like talking about it because we didn't all know how the hell we got here. Everyone's kind of looking around like we don't really know how the hell we got here. So where's the next move? And there's always someone who will pull you through. I've been very, very fortunate now with the people that I had to pull me through my bits, and it's. You know, and that's why I say this care system is so important, right? Music is the lifeblood of a lot of our things. It's the background to our movie scenes when we're sat in the back of the car looking longfully out the window, but then we don't want to look after the thing that's kind of feeding us that much. You know what I mean? So I think for artists, in the sense, they do need that. I feel that it doesn't need to get lost in translation in other things. It genuinely needs to be a care system.
Is there a moment where you look back and say that was the lowest moment for me? That was the pivotal moment?
I had a few of them. I was worried how far my rock bottom was going to be. Where's rock bottom for me? And you would never have seen it. I'm very good at hiding it. No one would have ever have seen it. But rock bottom, I mean, I don't even know if I hit it yet. You know what I mean? I feel like it's like one of those little graphs you see when it's like, oh, have we hit the you know, like the support, the market support? Yeah, are we there? This is support level. Oh my God. You know, it's the same thing. So it feels like I can either make that choice now and pick my last moment as my rock at the bottom, or I can make a new one. And make a whole new low. That's my choice. There's usually somebody in there that's not very good, but everyone else is trying to help, and you don't see the effect it's having on them as well. You live and die by the sword. I live and die by my sword. That's it. But the person who's behind trying to pick up the shield to help me, they haven't even got the fucking sword. They're just diving into battle for you. And that's the difference. You know what I mean? It's like people miss out on that bit. So it's never just on that person, you know what I mean? A lot of my stuff, you know, if I hadn't had the help I had, I don't know where the hell I'd be right now. So that's a credit to you in a sense.
The bit that I really respect you for, though, is you're very open about it. You talk about it. You talk about going to therapy. You talk about your lows. You talk about being unsure if you would even be here. And that's going to do a lot of good for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think I'd rather talk about it, and it's therapeutic for me. And like I say, I think there's many people who have this effect on therapy and all those things and sobriety. And I ain't saying everyone at home, by the way, should go sober. I ain't telling them to go vegan. I ain't telling them to do whatever. I'm saying this is what I did, and it worked pretty okay for me so far. So
you made a movie. You wrote a movie.
It's funny that it's based around AA, but I had a really weird AA experience the first time that I went into.
What's AA for anybody that doesn't know?
Alcoholics Anonymous. Right. And my first experience was with Russell Brand, which if you've seen Get Him to the Greek or any of those other movies, I went to his house and I love Russell.
There's something about that sentence which I can't get over. My first experience was with Russell Brand.
Okay. I mean, yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm in his house. I'm in this dude's house, and I've never met him. And I've only seen him on the movies and as a comic, and I, you know, My Bookie Wookie, I love that stuff. And like, so I know a lot of things about him, but I'm a really shy person when I first meet. I'm like, oh my God, like, so he makes me a coffee and we sit talking about our experiences. And I've never seen someone look at me the way he looked at me. Like, find you a man who looks at you like Russell Brand looks at you when he's listening to your stories, because he like looks into your soul. I was born again. And then we went to this meeting. It was an all male meeting, and there was everything in the meeting, from prison guards to ex-soldiers to ex-cons to postmen to bin men to everything. And then me and Russell Brand. So I'm like, this is the weirdest room I've ever been in my life. We're in like some old like community like church room or whatever. And then he's taking the chair in the room. So my first experience with AA was like the best experience ever. Because it was like he was just doing stand-up. It was unbelievable. He
was doing stand-up in an AA meeting?
No, it's like they have someone who chairs the meeting. Like, and the idea is like, if they say like, oh, can you talk about relationships now as affected by alcohol? Then he'll tell the story of his alcoholism or you know. I kind of came up with this film, and I haven't spoken to Russ about it, which is the first thing I have to do, because it was from him that this, obviously I'm in a movie right now, like, and I'm one of the characters, and I'm sat here going, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, but apparently I'm alcoholic and I've got a problem. Oh my God, what's going on? The walls are closing in.
Will Ferrell walks in.
Yeah, exactly. The Wolf of Wall Street was in the corner over there. No, it's wild. It was wild. So I'm excited about it, and I think it's really funny. I showed it one of my friends, and she really liked it. She laughed a lot at it, so we'll see.
What else is going on in your life in terms of like business and investing and projects and stuff like that? When you think about the direction of travel that you want to take over the next 10 years, which direction do you want to focus on and go in? You're investing tons. You've got your own businesses now. Everyone's going to say the same thing to you every time you have an interview. They're going to say, when's the reunion?
From the day I first got my like first check, and I went to the manager, I'm like, what do you invest your money in? Because he had the biggest garden in London. I was like, he's a good place to start. And he's like on about gold and whatever else. And then you learn about safe haven currencies and all these other things. And then I started to branch out a little bit more. Then I went on to properties, which was always the one I wanted to do. And then when I was 19, I nearly bought a fighting agency, which was fun. I got bought in to buy Bama when I was 19. So I roll up to this in my Burberry coat thinking I'm an absolute bad man because I'm about to buy like England's UFC.
Oh, okay, fine.
Right. So I go to this arena in Manchester. I'm looking, capacity's not great, everything else, but I'm looking at all the stuff. And you're a kid. So I'm a kid. And I mean, I remember being front row of the fight and some guy behind me obviously doesn't like the band very much, like, sit out, shut up, whatever else. But every fighter then, after got out the ring and shook my hand. And I just kept looking behind thinking, you still got something to say? Do you know the guy with the scary clown mask who just need that other guy's nose off? Like, he's my friend.
He's my
So I was like, yeah, exactly. And then I went and met everybody afterwards, and I got into his company. But unfortunately, the deal wasn't great. I put it through one of my investors that I have, and then it's like people try to catch you out. And this was always my biggest problem. Very fortunate to live in some lovely places. And every time someone would show up at my door to do something, and the job would cost £500, they would try and charge me 50 grand because the house was big. And I'm like learning early on, but don't get me wrong, I've spent some money on some stuff I shouldn't have spent money on.
You and me both.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail because I lost some money. Like, my thing I always say to people is like, I will tell you where I lost as much as I tell you where I win.
You got to make mistakes though, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like, my point is I'm going to do better than whatever my last mistake was anyway. Sure. That's the point. If I trust myself enough, it won't matter in the long run.
When you think about money though, you know, you didn't come from money. You didn't come from the back. When you started, I read that your dad had tons of debts and stuff like that. And so your relationship with money will be very, very different as you've gone over the last decade than a lot of other people, because to you, it's probably something that you thought you built up more when you were young.
My dad made decisions in our house of what was going on and stuff. And he did them for the right reasons. So I stand by that, and he doesn't need to feel any pain in that whatsoever, because he wanted us to go on a holiday and go to America, and he would bury himself. And he was so stressed. He said at one point in his life, he woke up and he couldn't remember his own name because he was so far in debt that he was only covering the interest, which I can't imagine how that feels. But at one point in my life, I mean, my friend, he's a professional poker player now, but he was quite a rich kid at school because he was like playing poker since he was like 13. So when we would go down to get breakfast, I couldn't afford it. And he'd buy me like 20p's worth of toast, and I couldn't afford it.
Nice.
Which is wild.
So then when you get money...
I didn't know my family were poor, but they were fucking, you know, we were not in a good place.
So how did that impact your relationship with money when you finally got it?
I'm more of a worrier than I was a splurger. I was like, because of where I lived and where I was from, I knew it could disappear. So I was always really cautious about protecting what I have and only spending what I earn. That's
money and happiness. Talk to me about the link. A lot of people...
There isn't one. We used to go to church. So the woman got a £5 note out, and she said, have you ever read a £5 note? And I was like, no, I haven't. I was like, no. And she's like, if you read it, it says, I promise to pay the bearer of this note £5. So money is promises, which I thought was great. But if you develop on that, and conversations I've had with people, money is care and the ability to relax on certain things. Life's going to kick you in that nut sometimes, and you're going to need something to help those around you. So it's never so much been for me about spending money on me. And sometimes I have to remind myself to shop because I'm terrible. And I'm one of those people who like will go on a shop, fill a basket, and then just not do the rest of it. In terms of with things with my family and different things that have happened, like my dad's debt for all those sorts of different reasons, I'd rather have it on hand. And if something, God forbid, happens to any of us, you know, my family are the last people to ever ask me for anything. And I'm the first one to go, this is why we do what we do, you know?
You have a son, Bear, beautiful child. He tells you that he's going to apply for X Factor someday.
This is a tricky one. I think his mom's hoping he's going to become some like yoga person. His mom's very chill these days.
He says, I'm getting Instagram and I'm going to go do X Factor. What do you say to him?
I mean, he's got the best advice from the parents around him for the long run, I guess. But I don't know. I think
Is that one?
obviously we protected his identity to start off with. And that's not being pretentious or anything other than the fact that I want to give him a chance to be Bear first before he has to be, oh, your mum and dad are so-and-so, you know? And I made my choice to be where I was at 14, 15. So I figure he can make his own choice then too. We'll have a good discussion about it, a long discussion, because I know what effects that can have as well. But I would never stop him doing something he wanted to do. I'd let him know the risks and I'd tell him what was going to happen, you know, and better that than, you know, my parents didn't really ever experience any of the things I've experienced before I got there. So they had no idea what I was signing up for. Would they change it? Probably not. But they would change some things that happened in between across the way, I bet, 100%.
Would you want him to follow in your footsteps, though?
No, I hope he did it better than I did.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I think sometimes you can get lost in the connection part of this game. And I think that's always been a difficult thing for me to connect with people because I put so many barriers up before you get to actually what's going on that you know, it's almost like hurdling them in a way.
Why do you think those barriers are up?
Protection. I think it's protecting people from what's, you know, if you turn up in a disguise every time, then you can always blame it on the disguise. The moment you're not wearing one, you got nothing to blame it on.
And what is it that your manager over there, Stephen, would know about you that probably most, I know, in terms of like,
that ain't a box we want to open on this show.
In terms of like what, you know, what someone who knows you very well would say about you that we wouldn't expect just from what we see online.
I think for me, I hide behind humor a lot. I make everything I can funny. And then that will leave it to not be as
offensive. Oh, okay. Interesting. What is the positioning that Liam Payne is hoping for? I guess, you know, from what you've described for Bear, you just want to be doing things you enjoy.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's, you know, there's been a slow road up to that point, and it's just doing things for the right reasons. I mean, we're in a beautiful age right now. You are your own press, which is actually great for artists if we learn to do it the right way. This whole thing I used to hate was going on and off talk shows, going on and off and doing this, and doing everything else that seemed to be for everybody else, and it was promoting your record, but then the record bites and you get nothing out of it, and it's like everybody else got their 5 minutes, but the record just didn't do what it wanted. Yeah. So it's like, I think the music industry is in a place where people need to throw out the old, you know, marketing format for these things. You know, Billie Eilish came from a bedroom and did this and da-da-da, and it worked out really well, but it wasn't the same format that you used back in 2010. Even on, I mean, the way the industry's changed while I've been in it has been wild, and I've only been here, I've been here a decade, just over a decade now. But it's insane. But I just think record labels and sometimes people spend budget on stuff that they don't need to do. You have your format, you have your fan base, grow it organically, properly, not through, you know, I don't know, the way we're doing things at the moment. Because sometimes it's just like, I don't know why the hell we're doing this.
Social media, your relationship with it. See, that's been my industry for the last decade. Good thing, bad thing. What's your relationship with it at the moment?
I think it's good. I think it's a difficult thing to manage. I love the idea of what TikTok does, but for me, I don't want to get sucked into my phone with like watching stuff constantly. And you do, and you need to be on your like learning stuff. And you know, it's the odd funny video, whatever else. But if your For You page is just like funny dogs and
yeah, it's fucking.
Then you're in a, what the hell's going on? You know, that's what it does to me. I'm like, God, really? We owe a little bit of our success to the way Twitter was, because worldwide trends weren't a thing before One Direction were an X Factor. Whereas on that night, we could trend everywhere. And then people would go, oh my God, what's this? As though, you know, magically, the biggest band on X Factor was the same time Twitter came out. It's perfect storm stuff, you know? So I think it's great. We need to weed out the bad stuff and focus on the good.
All this technology and social media has like taken the meaning out of our lives, because like dating now happens on these screens. People order their food by like tap, 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 and it shows up at the door. Even now with COVID, we're now working from screens. We used to have an office, or, you know, offices we could go to. Now it's all screens. And it feels like the world is getting more and more socially.
I mean, what's amazing is we were also worried about technology pushing us away from each other when COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
But it was the only thing that saved us, thank God, when COVID did hit, which I thought said a lot more about technology's good sides than it did about the bad sides. I mean, it's up to you how you use your platform in the end and what you let it do to you. Like I say, I enjoy TikTok, but I watch a few videos and I watch things that people send me. I don't really have a For You page. I don't really go through it constantly.
Sure.
I think if your TikTok screen is advice and videos about learning stuff, or like stuff that you're actually really interested in, you enjoy, not just random funny crap.
That's on Instagram. Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Oh, look, she's amazing. She's 10 out of 10. Oh, and she's rich. Oh, her life's perfect. And look at my life sat here in my boxer shorts eating this pot noodle.
I think there's a fine line between these things. And you know, there was a big debate about me on loose women at one point, which I was all right with it. It was okay. I understood what they were saying. But I worked really hard for what I did in my underwear commercial, you know. And it did overtake my life in certain respects. Yeah, for sure it did. But it was actually an aim of mine. It's one of the only things I've ever aimed for, was to try and do an underwear commercial. So I remember I went to my meeting with the company I was working with, and they were like, no, we don't want to do that with you. And I was like, no, trust me. Just trust me. And to be fair, they put the trust in me. I went and trained my ass off, and I got myself where I wanted to be. But then it was like people worrying about people's self-esteem, looking at the picture and whatever else. I get that. But I quite enjoy the idea of looking at someone and being like, wow, that's cool, man. Like, I'm going to go out and get that. Let's not lose the idea of striving for something as well, though, because it's all right to say, yeah, I'm perfect. It was an advert I saw somewhere the other day, and I thought, are we really that narcissistic that we have to call all ourselves perfect for everyone to be okay with each other? I want to teach the next generation to strive for things as much as I want them to feel confident in themselves.
Have you figured, because it's taken me some time to try and understand what it is that actually makes me happy.
Yeah.
I used to, once upon a time when I was broke.
This is a big one.
Yeah, I was going to end on this big question, but I used to think it was like, oh, I'll get a Lamborghini and then I'll be happy. And like, that's why my book is called Happy Sexy Millionaire, because I thought that, I wrote in the first page of my diary at 18, I wrote Range Rover, bear in mind I didn't have a driving lesson and I was stealing Chicago Town pizzas at the time. Range Rover Sport will be my first car. I'll make $1 million before I'm 25. I'll get a really hot girlfriend and I'll work on my body image. What I meant is I'll get a six pack. I just didn't want to write that. And I thought that is the goal of life. I get those things. Range Rover was my first car. I made $1 million before I was 25. And I'm like, where is the confetti? And if that's not it, then what the fuck is life about?
I mean, what happens when you wake up and every day is a dream? That'll mess you up. I often have looked for the moment in life where I bang my head and I might be in some sort of comatose dream that I've invented for myself. Like, I was that messed up at some point. I was like, I'm sure this is a simulation, guys. Like, I must have made this wall, because I can't be here because of where I was yesterday.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, there's those wild things that if you let them creep in, they will F you up bad. Someone said something to me quite interesting the other day. Our view of what we hunt for as humans has changed. We don't hunt for food anymore. We hunt for success. So it's almost like the target went from animals and corn and food to friggin' Lamborghinis and that sort of stuff. But that's what we strive for now. Like, even to the point, like you were saying earlier about you're so glad Huel's here because that supplements your food sometimes. You're that driven by your drive that you forget you're going to eat sometimes. And I was the same at work. Oh my God, I'm terrible. Like, I'm known for skipping lunch breaks and working through the day to get home quicker because I can go without. I'll just muster on through. But think about that. You've gone past your basic survival instinct to... It's wild, right?
Optimizing against your health for coins.
Yeah, exactly. I might miss this thing that's going. No, I'm exactly the same. It's something I think that we struggle with in this respect. And it's like
priorities.
I don't know anything about what makes me happy at this point. I really don't.
Really?
No, I've found a couple of things that I think I'm interested in. But like, the thing is, once you start making money on these scales and things that happen, it only becomes the drive that's interesting to you if it's going to fast forward you somehow. And that's not that toxic thing that funny enough, we've come full circle, but it's the same sort of thing. And I think it's a big problem for me. That's why drawing for me was the biggest one at the time, because I was like, this is what children do. Why should I do this? And then funny that I drew something that was about being a child was that it's weird how things go full circle in that respect. But yeah, I often struggle to get on with something if I don't think it's forwarding me in life somehow, rather than just enjoying the moment or going out and watching the sunset. One of my biggest things that made me happy while I was training was 4 a.m., getting up in the dark. And this sounds like I am some sort of psychopath, and I was. But you're like, go into the park, run for a little bit, and then stand on the thing and watch the sunrise. It was the best thing. And you know why? It's fucking free. You can stand and watch the sunrise and go, wow, thanks for another day, sort of thing. I know that sounds really woo-saw and like really far out spiritual, but for me, it wasn't like that. I just enjoyed seeing how beautiful this moment was. And I was the only person in Hyde Park running at 4 a.m. every single day. And it was some of the best time I've had in life.
You said you've not figured out what makes you happy.
Definitely not yet, no.
I mean, so what's my conclusive point been for what makes me happy? A worthwhile challenge that I'm doing with people that I love. And I've come up with that based on a ton of things. When you look at Tyson Fury when he's not in the gym, depressed. When you look at gold Olympians, whether they win or lose at the Olympics, they get depression because they've reached the mountaintop and there's nothing else to strive for. And so when I was going through my notes, I was thinking the day that someone offered me 50 odd million to buy my business was one of the worst days of my life. And Gary Vaynerchuk, I know you're doing some stuff with him. He says the same thing. When I spoke to him on the podcast, he was like, the day when I buy the New York Jets will be the worst day of my life. He was like, I hope it happens on my deathbed, because not having something to strive for.
And this has been a big struggle of mine for many
You lose
years.
orientation, right? When you're training for the Olympics, we're going this way. This is our purpose in life. When the Olympics is over, you ain't got no fucking direction. You're like,
well, I mean, look at this. I'm talking about direction. That whole thing for me and that mountain for me was 1D. And music after that, like I said, you're never going to keep up with what we did. Like we sold so many records and we broke so many records. We did so many things. You know, I mean, we were in stadiums every day, 94,000 people every day. Like I used to break into Wembley Stadium on the nighttime because it was fun and I was smashed. And I thought, these people aren't going to recognize me. I've broken into every major stadium in America, honestly. And then people used to chase us on these like police, like little squad bikes, being like, hey, sir, you're not supposed to be in here. And we'd run because it was like a game of tag. I swear to God. So once you reach that height, I suppose one of the reasons I struggled the most out of it is because you're never really going to reach that height again. And then it's almost like limbo. And also not knowing whether or not we're going to come back. Are we going to come back? Everyone's asking. And it feels like pressure to come back. It's almost like your parents going, when's baby 2 coming? You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, now we got to have another one. So, you know, the day the band ended, I was like, thank Lord for that. And I know a lot of people are going to be mad at me for saying that, but I needed to stop or it would kill me. You need to have something to strive for. And I feel like I'm finding that a little bit more now and learning to relax. You
tried meditation.
Cheryl is very big on meditation. I did a couple of things in meditation with my old personal training that were quite good, but my mind's so fucking busy. I can't shut it up. Like the moment I'm trying to not think about something, I'm like, oh yeah, but what about if we just did this next week? And I know you'll be exactly the same. That's what I'm saying.
I'm like trying so fucking hard with this meditation thing.
Let's do it together.
I'm
we'll
showing
go on a
up
journey.
every morning and I'm like, Steve, close the tabs. And every morning I'm sat there on the fucking floor of my shower because it's like looks like it's from Thailand and the water's pouring and I'm like, just don't think about anything. And then I'm like, I'm planning all that schedule in my head. I'm like, Liam's coming for the podcast now. What shall I speak to him about? And then, you know,
which one were you doing? The 2 senses thing where you like think of like what you can hear and what you can smell?
I've tried all of them. I've tried this one with beads where you like hold the beads and you just move the beads through your hand.
The simulation, like yeah. I like the 2 senses ones. Not bad. It's good in the shower as well. If you like close your eyes and then pick 2 senses, which you can choose like feel.
Oh, interesting.
Noise.
I've not tried that.
So your mind can only do 2 senses at once. So once you shut some of them off, that's technically meditation because you're in the moment. But I still don't feel like I've had that.
Worthwhile challenge with people you love. So worthwhile, you define it yourself, right? Challenge means it can't be easy because then your motivation won't be high, and then surrounded by people you love. For me, that is where I've figured out my happiness lives. And so upon leaving my company that I'd founded for 10 years, now I'm like learning to DJ, doing a big theatrical play at the Albert Hall, which we've directed and produced. I'm throwing my hand at everything, biotech.
No, I'm the same.
You know? And that's what I was thinking with you, from what you were saying. You're like, you're never going to top that mountain. So what is the mountain?
I went to Namibia with Ant was one of the things, and we jumped. We did a world first of a canyon swing in Namibia, which was really crazy and wild. And I thought I might die on national television, but that is okay. What else did we do? Doing this NFT thing's really interesting. Doing the online shows because we were one of the first people to really like pioneer with the company the thing through that. And my team were massive behind that. But it was almost like making a TV show every week with new songs and songs that I hadn't sang since whatever, songs I'd never heard before. And I just would turn up and do it. And we did really, really well. And I loved that. I don't know. I think I've had many jobs. I've got like a laundry list to the point where when the census came, I didn't know what the hell to write. And I didn't want to write performer because I think it just sounds like such a bodge off job of like, it doesn't encapsulate anything that I actually do. I mean, we design clothes for Hugo, underwear modeling, loads of stuff. So,
do you think maybe you just need a really big, fucking scary, terrifying goal that you really care about?
Well, I mean, someone did ask me to go and do Everest at one point, and I was like, I don't know. I might die on that one. If I'm honest about happiness, I think it's learning to have respect for yourself. I mean, there's a lot of things people say about don't base yourself on others and never look at other people in that way, which I actually think you need to throw out the window. Because when I was like, it's almost weird, I learned it from my character design. When I was designing characters, I didn't start from nowhere. And how I learned to design characters was like, how do you make a dragon if you've never seen one? How do you know what a dragon is? Anyone? So they mix it with exactly, this is funny. So they mix it with a lion, mixed with a snake, mixed with a crocodile, mixed with a dinosaur. Because they're the ones that we have. So they base them off of stuff. So I look at people who are my heroes and I think, what is it that I love about them that I don't think I possess yet? And then that's how you know you can respect yourself. And I think that's the most important thing for me is if I get up in the morning, I respect myself. I go to bed on nighttime, I respect myself. I'm happy. Christian Bale, for example, I love his acting go-to. And I mean, some things he's done in his career have been really unhealthy when he did The Machinist and stuff like that. But I like that drive and I like the fact that he like buries himself into a role and stuff. And I've never learned that quite yet. So that might be one of the things I want to
steal.
Exactly. People spend so much time on their avatars, on their games when they start something. But in life, you are your avatar. You can do whatever you want. And it's like if you're making your avatar and you've got to go and do 10 free kicks to earn the next Ronaldo boot, you're like, oh, all right, I'll get in there and do them. The moment someone asks you to do something in life to earn something, you're like, oh, I don't want to do it. But it's like, that's why I was trying to think how we explain that to kids. But that's the most basic analogy I can come up with.
Amazing conversation. And I really, really respect and appreciate your willingness to be open and honest about all these things because you're helping so many people, you don't even realize it.
I do hope so.
You know, and I think you're just a tremendously inspirational guy. You're, you know, an incredible entrepreneur, which I don't think people have fully appreciated yet because you've not sort of disclosed all of the investments and businesses you're involved in, but I think that's certainly coming. I think we might have a bit of a European Ashton Kutcher on our hands, if I say so myself. But yeah, thank you, mate. Honestly, you know, you've been through what is a unique, just tremendously unique experience over the last decade. Nobody can understand it other than probably the boys you did it with. And from that, you know, there's ups, there's downs, but this is life, right? And you sharing it has brought tremendous value for me. So I know it will definitely bring huge value for our audience. So I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.